Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to speak, to have the opportunity to speak to the great weeks. I will speak about a joint work with Gerald Tenenbaum, and I will explain some work about Selbert-Delange method. So I begin by some historical points. So let P is a set of prime and omega of n, the cardinality of the prime divisors of n. So pk of x will be the cardinality of the set of integer less than x, such that omega of n is fixed and equal to k. Okay, so of course, if I do historical presentation, I begin by Hadamard and Delavallee-Poussin result about the prime number theorem. So, with our notation is P1 of x is equivalent to x over log x when x tends to infinity. Then Landau generalize this result with a pk of x. So for each k fx, we have the equivalent pk of x is equivalent to x times log x power k minus 1 over the factorial of k minus 1 times log x. So here, log index 2 is the log function. Okay. Now we have the result of Hardy and Ramanujan who prove an uniform upper bound. So pk of x is bounded by a constant times what the expected term, well, when k is not too big, but so we have this nice upper bound. So now we arrive to Erdős result who prove an asymptotic uniform bond equivalent. So pk of x is equivalent to x log x power k minus 1 over the factorial of k minus 1 times log x, but uniform around log x. So I mean when the absolute value of k minus log x is less than a constant times square root log x. So now we arrive to closer result of our talk. So in 1953 and 54, Sate prove an uniform equivalent. So, but for for k minus 1 over log x less than 2 minus epsilon. So the equivalent is a function can be settled with a function lambda. So lambda is 1 over a capital gamma of r plus 1 and an Eulerian product. So the Eulerian product is a product over p of y minus p power r times 1 plus r over p minus 1. And So the equivalent is the product of lambda of R times the expected value, well, the equivalent in the Erdős results. And the way to prove it is really technical. He used an inductive method based on a functional equation of pk star of x. So pk star counts only square-free integer, and then you can deduce it using the factorization of n as a square-free integer times a square. But it's a long proof, and then Selberg find a new method using analysis, a complex analysis. So he remarked that pk of x is a coefficient of the sum of n less than x of z power omega of n. So the kth coefficient. So using a complex analysis, you can use Cauchy formula, and you have this very nice formula. And why this formula is useful? Because now you need to estimate the sum of a multiplicative function z power of omega of n. And when you look at the Dirichlet series of this function, you find an Eulerian product, and you can approximate it by zeta of s power z times a convergent Eulerian product. So it's okay for S with a real part larger than 1, and of course you need to be careful for the definition of zeta of s power z when the real part of s is less than 1. But you have this Perron formula, and you know that around around s equal 1, zeta of s is can be approximated by s minus 1 power minus z. So using the Hankel formula, so I write it what I mean by Hankel formula. So capital H is negatively oriented Hankel contour around S. So please find the drawing. And so it's very crucial for the Selberg method to understand how we can handle this Hankel contour. So then we truncating the contour on using the holomorphic continuation of zeta of S in the 0-3 region. We get this estimate. So pk of x is approximated by lambda of r times x times log x power k minus 1 over the factorial k minus 1 and times log x. And the other term is k over log x, but it's uniform for k minus 1 over log x is less than b, but b is a constant, a fixed constant. So it can be here larger than 2. And to get this constant, you use the saddle point method to estimate the Cauchy integral. So this is a very efficient method, and it's a way to explain why you find this factor lambda of R. Of course, because you find it studying the Dirichlet series of z power omega of n. So please note that if R equals 0 and 1, you have a lambda of R is 1. Then after, Delange studies systematically summatory formula for coefficient of Dirichlet series which are close to zeta of s power rho. So this gives a new proof of Erdős-Kac theorem. So I mean the normal distribution of omega of n minus log x, which is the mean of omega of n, over the square root of log x. So it's a very nice result and very fundamental for probabilistic number theory. So using Selberg and Delange method, we can estimate the second term in the Erdős-Kac theorem. And we also be able to estimate the moment of omega of n minus log x in some sets, for example, for the set defined by the condition omega of n is congruent to A mod Q. So there is a much more example of application, so distribution of some subsequences on asymptotic expansion and so on. And so there is a very nice book of Gerald Tenenbaum where there is a very two nice chapter on Selberg-Delange method. So he gave effective form of previous result on a very nice surveys of this result. Some also new result. So if you assume that you have a function, not multiplicative, but just an arithmetical function which has a Dirichlet series close to zeta of s power rho. So I write it zeta of s power rho times capital G of s, and we assume on small g of n that we have such a bond. So you see that such a hypothesis do not imply that there is that J capital G of S as an holomorphic continuation. But if you assume that K is an integer, you have such a bond, you can prove an asymptotic for the sum of f of n. So we have a nice development plus an error term, like in Selberg-Delange method, and R of xf satisfy a general upper bound. So we have h of k, which is bounded as in our assumption. We have the error term of the prime number theorem, well, exponential of minus a times the square root of log x, and time. Oh, so there is some question. Oh, so yes, maybe there is a factor x. Sorry. In the upper bound. And the second term of the upper bound is x times a constant times k plus 1 power k plus 1 over log x power k plus 1. So if k is large, it's a accurate estimate. Okay, so there is also other hypothesis. You can assume that G of S satisfy an analytic continuation in the 0-free region of zeta of S. And if you have, so rho satisfies that the real part of rho is less than y minus epsilon, you can write the main term as a nice formula. So you have the sum of f of n is the integral between 0 and 1 of x power 1 minus t times this continuous function alpha of rho, index rho of t times t minus rho dt, and with a very small error term. So it's a nice result, and it can be useful in some application. Okay, so now I will speak about the same result with a new hypothesis, so a weaker hypothesis sometimes. So you write f of s, the Dirichlet series, which is zeta of s power rho time a Dirichlet series associated to a function, arithmetical function small j. Then you have the relation of small f with small j with a convolution. And tau index rho is associated to the power of a zeta Riemann function. So using Selberg-Delange method, we have an estimate of the sum of tau index rho of n, as we see as we saw before. And then we can use the convolution relation to prove an asymptotic estimate for the sum of f of n. So we have here lambda of J of F. So the lambda J is a linear combination of some gamma H. So is the sum of J of n times log n power H over n. So previous hypothesis imply convergence of gamma of H, so which is a derivative of capital J Dirichlet series in one. Okay. So now, recently, Granville and Koukoulopoulos investigate hypothesis, new hypothesis. So we assume now that the modulus of F is less than the tau index R. R is a fixed parameter. And there is such a hypothesis. It means that the mean value of f of p is close to rho, in the sense that the sum of gp log p, which is the sum of f of p minus rho times log p, is less than x over log x power a. So a is a parameter, a fixed parameter, but I mean, in the spirit of this result, a should be small, because if a is large, then it's very close to Selberg-Delange hypothesis. Okay, so remember this formula, this hypothesis, and keep in your mind that A should be small. But if A is small, then with this formula, the derivative of capital J may diverge. But if you take the limit of the derivative when s tends to 1, s real and larger than 1, then you can have a nice definition of gamma h. So I add a star to say that it's to quote the small modification of this definition, and it's defined for h between 0 and strictly less than a. Okay, so it's an easy result, but it's very important to be observed. So now we expect 1 with capital G, J less is a integer part of a minus 1. So the result of Granville and Koukoulopoulos can be settled. So if you have the assumption on the sizes of F and a GP upper bound, then the rest in the asymptotic is less than x over log x power capital A plus 1 minus R, with an additional extra factor. So it's log x power delta of a j plus 1. So delta is a Kronecker symbol. So this means that is 0 unless a equal j plus 1. So lambda j of S are defined as in the classical case, but with gamma h star in the place of gamma h. Okay. So contrary to the pure Selberg-Delange estimates, these do not necessarily provide an asymptotic formula, since rho minus 1, which is the exponent of the main term in the Selberg-Delange result, can be less than r minus 1 minus capital A. So in fact, if you assume that the real part of rho is strictly less than r, and that A is very small, then this relation is possible. So the theorem of Granville and Kokolopoulos only furnishes the upper bound of the sum of f of n. Okay, but if we look at upper bound, there is some very nice result in the literature. So the first result was proved by Hall and Tenenbaum, and after there is some improvement of Tenenbaum, which proves that the upper bound is m of x of f, the sum of f of n for n less than x, is bounded by x over log x power 1 minus r plus capital K times r minus rho. And so the K is a constant. If f is real, the optimal result is 0.328 and so on. So this means that this upper bound is better than Granville and Kokolopoulos result when for small capital A, so for capital A less than capital K times r minus rho. Okay. And if you restrict yourself to rho equals 0, you can replace capital K by 1 minus 2 over P, little better constant. Okay, so in our work with Gérald, we try to solve 3 questions. So first, what hypothesis can yield a genuine asymptotic expansion, not an upper bound, but an asymptotic expansion? Second, can we relax the assumption side of G of P? So I mean, for example, the assumption such that F need to be less than tau of R. And can we also simplify the proof of Granville and Kokolopoulos? And is there some limitation under GP? I mean, is there some counter example who can show that we cannot prove a better error term. Okay, so let's explain our results. So for the first question, so we recall the convolution F is two index row convolution with J, and we have the first theorem. So I will explain the assumption. So first, we assume a classical bond for f of p power nu. So it's bounded by capital B power nu. B is a parameter. And we assume also that for any epsilon, f of n should be less than a constant time a power of n power epsilon. So like for an example in a Shu theorem. And we assume that the mean value of f of p, so it means the sum of over p less than x of the modulus of f of p over p is less than r log x plus capital O of 1. I mean, so using this, so this is a weaker condition because we can accept some large value of f of p if they are rare. I mean, in the if it's compatible with this mean value condition. And then we had a very specific hypothesis, an hypothesis on a small interval. I mean, we assume that G of P is bounded in a mean average in the small interval. So I mean that the sum between x and x plus z of G of P times log P is bounded by z over log x power A. So it's a stronger result than GP condition in Granville-Kokolopoulos theorem. But we get a stronger result because we have a bond with x times power log x over log x power a plus 1 minus the maximum of 0 and the real value of rho. So you remember that in Kokolopoulos and Granville and Kokolopoulos result, the maximum is replaced by R, which is the defined by the condition that the f of n is less than tau of R of n. Okay. So it's a genuine asymptotic formula whenever the real part of rho is non-negative. But as we can see, limitation is necessary because if we assume, if we take rho is minus R, so this means so we have a typical example where the real part of rho is negative, then we know that there is some example such that the mean value of f of n is less than x over log x power 8 plus 1. But as rho is negative, I mean, the error term dominate the term given by the Selberg-Delange. So I mean, it's dominate x over log x power rho minus 1. And this means that, in fact, we need this kind of error term. We need an error term larger than x over log x power 8 plus 1. Okay, so I give our counter example. So you take f to be the convolution of tau of index minus r with a j function, but j is a multiplicative function defined by p power I over log p power a. So I will show you the proof because it's well, an easy proof, easy to explain. And of course, G satisfies the short interval conditions. Okay. Okay, so the second question is, can we relax the assumption on G and use a simplified proof or a different proof? So for this, we use a friable summation. So I recall that we say that an integer is y friable if all is prime factor is less than y. And I will define what is friable assumption, but it's associated to the y friable integer. And so our theorems 2 is assume that f satisfies GP, of course, but we have this mean value bound, which is not very strong, but stronger than not strong. Well, it's weaker than Granville-Kokolopoulos assumption, and we also assume a result on the a square value of f of p and also the value of f p nu for nu larger than 2. But it's not really a strong hypothesis. I mean, in a lot of examples is easily satisfied. Then we have the result on the error term, which is we have the same power of log x as in Granville and Kokolopoulos result. We just reduce the log-log factor in a log-log-log factor. Okay, it's not very important, but it should be quote. Then, of course, the assumption cannot be directly comparable because this assumption is not in Granville-Kokolopoulos result, but of course, this assumption is weaker than the Kokolopoulos assumption over the modulus of f. However, our result can be useful if some exceptional value of f of p is large. So I quote an example. So if, for example, if f of the k square prime factor p index k square is k over log x to k. So very large value, but for very few prime. And please note that the case where a is an integer, playing no special role. So again, the third question: what are the limitations of the GP? We can find a f function satisfy GP rho equals 0, such that we have an omega result for the rest. So it's nearly the bond of Koulopoulos and Granville, but with here a minus c times r, and c is less than 1. Okay, so for this example, we choose f of p defined as r time p power itp, and tp is a step function which has the order of log p power a. So we can define such a function assuming, for example, that tp is constant in a large interval. And if we estimate sorry, the Dirichlet series with the variable condition here, but with in one s equal 1 plus itx, then we have the this approximation. It means that this Dirichlet series is very large, is log x power r. I mean, it's explained that it's why it is a good counter example, because we can show that I mean, there is a best possible bond here, and it's nice to have such a limitation under GP. And if we want to restrict on a real arithmetical function for f, you can assume that f of p is r times the sine of the cosinus of tp log p. And then we need to restrict to c less than 2 over pi. So this essentially meets the whole Tenenbaum estimate. You remember the upper bound that I gave previously. And we have that the summation of f of p over p converge whenever for all a capital A bigger than 0. Okay, so now I have 10 minutes to speak about the proof. So for the first theorem, we have a summation. So we use a summation of j of n over n, but when we fix omega of n. So it's not difficult to say that, to prove that it's close to these summations. So we sum and we restrict log p in a small interval. And we have a product of the sum of j of p over p, and then we can use our short interval condition. And so this summation turn out to be the general term of a convergence series in K. So we can bound easily the tail of the series well, when K is larger than a constant times log X. Okay, and so we get the convergence of a gamma H constant, well, when H is less than capital J. And we can finish the proof using a convolution argument. And what I want to underline is that we use the Selberg-Delange result. I mean, we use the estimate of capital T index row function, the sum of two index row. So this means our result can be viewed as a consequence of Selberg-Delange method. Okay, so for theorem 2, we use variable summation. So I recall what is variable summation. It was introduced by Duffin, but rediscovered by Fourie and Tenenbaum 30 years ago. And we say that the series sum of an has variable sum S if we restrict our sum on a y variable integer, there is a limit when y tends to infinity, and the limit is S. There is a very nice example. So if you have never seen such a summation, you can look at the summation of a exponential of 2 pi I n theta over n. So we get what we expect plus a term m of theta, which is non-zero for some rational. So for a over q when q is a power of prime. So it's a very nice result. So we say, if the series is summable in a usual sense, and if the variable sum is equal to its usual sum, we say that the series is regular for the variable summation method. So, for example, the sum of the Mobius function over n is classically equivalent to the prime number theorem. It's very easy to handle the variable sum, of course. But the prime number theorem implies also that the sum for 1 over n power 1 plus I tau has a friable sum, zeta of 1 plus I2, but which is not convergent in a usual term. So it's very useful to use a friable sum. And we prove also with Gérald that the friable summation of Fourier series verifies Jordan's theorem, but avoids the Gibbs phenomenon. So what is the Gibbs phenomenon? So I draw some so this is a representation of some partial Fourier series, so which much lot of term, and you see that the upper the supremum of the partial Fourier series is larger than pi. It's larger than the supremum of the function. And you can prove this the result for the bound variation and normalized function. So I take here is one periodic, and we have the convergence, but without Gibbs phenomenon. So it's a nice result. And we have also an upper bound for the convergence if we assume that capital F is a Lipschitz with exponent alpha. So there is many applications. For example, we can prove condition over the convergence. So for which theta such a series is convergent. So when B is t minus the integral part of t minus 1/2. So I have no time to explain the result, but it's a nice result. And if we go back to the Selberg-Delange result, so under GP, we know that the series of G of n log n power h over n may diverge, but the friable sums converge for h less than j. So we use in our proof of theorem 2 convolution relation. So assume that f of y is a g y with a convolution with to of rho, and we consider f of y. We take y is x power 1 over log x, and we use this formula to estimate the sum of f of y of n. And since we have a very accurate estimate of t of rho, because we, thanks to a Selberg-Delange method, and using the friable sum of gy, then we get this result for any h, and as the lambda of h of yg can be approximate by the limit when y tends to infinity for h less than capital J, and we have also an upper bound for larger h, then it's just remain to prove our theorem. We just need to handle some of hy of n. And well, we can prove such a result so the summation is on a shift integer. And after using inductive trick, we can reduce this log-log factor by log-log-log factor. Okay, so I have no time to give more details. I would like to explain the proof of our counterexample, but I think I will stop here. So thank you for your attention and happy birthday, Balou.
Thank you very much, Régis. Yeah, are there any questions or remarks? Please do not hesitate.
Okay, so yeah, please.
Yes, Emmanuel.
Okay, so I'll go first then. Andrew, for instance, has done a lot on the analogies between integers and permutations, and parts of it extends to this context. So I was wondering if some of your improvements could also lead to new results in that direction.
I don't know, but maybe you see, it's usually if you take some example, very often it satisfies the Selberg-Delange condition or satisfies the GP condition for any A. So it's very easy to apply it. Our work is maybe focused on the restriction. So when you take A very small, what can you expect? So we prove two counterexample with limitation. And so we prove also that for if the real part of rho is positive, then we get a better error term. But you know, in general, when we take for application, there is you need to find, well, if you, on plain example, the GP is easily satisfied, and then it's easy to get an asymptotic, Selberg-Delange asymptotic.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there other questions or remarks?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor, for the nice talk. I wanted to ask you about, is there any relation between the freeability condition and the Riemann hypothesis? So can we say they're equivalent or something?
Well, you know, for in this context, Riemann hypothesis is not very useful because I mean we have a very weak condition of the sum of GP log P. So this means that is the opposite of Riemann hypothesis. I mean, you have a very weak result of the summation over P. So to assume a Riemann hypothesis here is useless.
Okay. Okay, I see. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Other questions, remarks? Okay.